We want to start off by telling you a little bit about what we were hoping to accomplish this year, what our plans were. And so let me really quickly share my screen with you. There we go. So you may recall that we had engaged Georgia Center for Nonprofits a couple years ago to do a human services assessment of Cobb County. And that was an incredibly worthwhile effort. Thank you to those of you on this call who helped to make that possible. A copy of that full study is on our website, but what you see in front of you is one example of a view that was provided of Cobb County by census tract. And there's a view of this looking at workforce and economics, education, healthcare, as well as housing. And what this really did for us was it left us at the point where we could not deny what needed to happen in our community. We suspected that certain areas were having certain challenges, but this put it front and center, and it made it clear to us that our grant making needed to be focused on those specific areas. So we were in the process of changing our entire grant making program. We were rolling out these results. We were in front of Rotary clubs and Kiwanis clubs and all different organizations, or at least at the beginning of that. And then, of course, things changed a little bit. So what we knew we were going to need to do in order to make a difference was to really not just change the grant program, but we were going to need to align the strategies that were being focused on those areas. We wanted to reward those organizations that had a physical presence on site. We wanted to make sure we were supporting those organizations that were working with other organizations and collaborating. But in order to have the time to do that, and then also in order to get our stakeholder communications aligned and to get the word out that in order to really make a difference, we all needed to be as aligned as we could be in order to hit the goals. In order to do that, we were going to need to expand our staff and our platform. So we had in place at that point, myself, as well as Kat Gankowski and Barbara Garner, who were both at that point part-time resource managers. But we knew that we needed to adjust roles, become a little more specialized, and bring in a full-time operations manager. So with that, I would love to ask that our team introduce themselves. So Barbara, would you kick us off and just tell the folks on the call who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us. As Sherry said, my name is Barbara Garner, and I'm the Donor Services Manager. Before moving into this position, as you just saw, I was one of those part-time resource managers for almost 3 years. And in that role, my focus was operations. During that time, our assets nearly doubled, and we very much needed to expand our roles and bring in, like Sherry said, that full-time operations manager. I have always said that the very best part of my day is getting to connect with our fund holders and donors. And now these amazing, generous folks, such as yourselves, are the focus of my day. And on a day-to-day basis, that looks like connecting donors who care with causes that matter. And if that sounds familiar, it should, because that's a portion of our mission statement. A timely example of this is very recently, one of our fund holders reached out and asked us to connect her with local nonprofits serving children in our community who would like to play sports or take art classes, but might not be able to do so without assistance. These are activities that her grandchildren really enjoy, and she wanted to make grants in their name for their Christmas gift. So we'll be sharing a lot more about this story soon on our blog, newsletter, and social media, because it's such a good news story, and we could certainly all use that right about now. In addition to working with our fund holders, I'm also working towards my Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy designation and learning a lot of great information that I look forward to sharing with you very soon. Thank you.
So can you see why she is the ideal person to be our donor services manager? Barbara, we are so thankful to have you on our staff and just thankful for all that you do every day. Someone else that I am very thankful for is Kat Gankowski. Kat was my first hire when I came on board back in January of 2017, and she has been through a lot with us. So Kat, could you introduce yourself and talk about what you're doing now?
Good morning, everyone. Kat Gankowski here. I have been working with Barbara as the other part-time resource manager, and I am moving into my new role as the nonprofit liaison. It is the perfect role for me because I love everything nonprofit and being able to work with those that have the boots on the ground and learn what they're doing and how they need assistance has been amazing for me. We just finished the final round of granting to Operation Meal Plan, and I was able to help in the decision making by knowing which nonprofits really needed funds to get through the rest of this year in order to feed their clients. One of them was able to give their in-house chef time off, which was much needed because she's been working 24/7. They were able to use the funds at local Cobb County restaurants in order to provide Thanksgiving meals. So this is a blessing to be able to see my vision through and work with the local nonprofits.
And again, we have the perfect person in this role. So Kat, thank you for all that you do. Now I'd like to introduce Patty Fries. I do that. Sorry, Patty. You know, when you see something spelled F-R-I-E-S, you just can't help yourself. But Patty Fries joined us in June, and I'd love for her to tell you about herself and what she's doing.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you, and I'm excited to learn more about you all and what you do and how you're contributing to the community as well. My background is in has been in the investment field. I have served in the area of operations. I've also done client service, and I've also done compliance. In my current role now, as you can see, I'm wearing multiple hats. So I assist Sherry, I help Kat, I help Barbara, I help people who call in. So I'm wearing many hats all day long and juggling lots of things all day long, which is fine. I love that kind of aspect of my job. But I think probably the thing that I enjoy the most is being able to help people. When people call the office and they need assistance, I really love being able to give them some resources to reach out to. So I look forward to working with all of you, and I'm excited to be here and working with the team.
Wow. We do have a great team, and I hope every person on this call has an opportunity to meet these ladies in person. It's just a joy to come to work every day, not just to do what we do, which I say every day that I've got the best job in the world. It's pretty hard at times. It's the best job in the world, and we've got the greatest team to work with. So another thing, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Another thing that we knew that we needed to do, simply because we've been talking about it for a while, was what's down here at the bottom, this investment manager search. Now, I'm not going to say anything about that because our board chair, Todd McMullen, is going to cover that, but just wanted to tee that up. But when you look at all these things, you know, one of the big questions that comes out of this is, how are we going to do this? You know, we basically have two sources of funding. One is the charitable funds that we manage. And so just know, when you have a charitable fund with us, even before you make your first grant out of that fund, you are helping us to do what we do in the community. So thank you for that. And the other source of assistance is the funding that often comes primarily through corporations. Now, we also have a lot of individual donors, and I do not want to in any way say that we don't need your help, because we do, and we thank you tremendously. But corporate folks, particularly right now, are very focused on the concept of corporate social responsibility. And what they have told us is that they want to be, quote unquote, corporate champions with a little c. We put a big C behind that with our corporate champion program. And they really want to be good corporate citizens. And as our founder, Jim Roden, will say, they want to pay their corporate rent, their civic rent. And what is important to them is that they have data around what the community needs. They don't want to just hear anecdotally. They want to know what the needs are. And so our response to that is, well, yeah, we do. The second thing is knowledge of our community's assets. Well, you just heard Kat talk about how she was able to connect the folks with the chamber who created Operation Meal Plan with us, with those organizations in the community that really needed the most help with feeding their residents. So we're right there as well. They also like the idea of pooling their resources in a very targeted manner to make sure that they are truly making an impact, and we make that happen. And what was most important to them, honestly, is simplicity. They have businesses to run. They don't want to spend and can't afford to spend a lot of time on this, because they, in order to be able to provide the support that's needed, it's important that they be able to focus on the business at hand. So we created a program that does just that. Our plan was to roll it out big early last year, and we were partway there, but didn't get it all done. But the whole concept of that is that at different levels, you are supporting Cobb Community Foundation, and there are also different benefits. But to me, one of the key focuses of that particular program is that at various levels, a certain part of your annual commitment to Cobb Community Foundation goes directly toward a grant. So as we rolled out last year, our Cobb COVID-19 Community Response Fund, every single one of those grants recognized donors who made that grant possible. So anyway, that was the plan for last year. And then this happened. And so things changed quite a bit. And before we jump into our response, there are just two slides that I think will really sum up a lot of what folks have been dealing with. So the US Census Bureau worked with 6 to 7 other agencies to create what's called a household pulse survey. And they started this back in April and have continued it off and on, and it will continue off and on until December 31. And the whole idea was to gather data, and it's done either via online or text with designated households that they asked to participate in this. So it's the same households all year long, and they selected by addresses to try to get a good cross section. And they brought it down. We can look at the data at as granular a level as Metro Atlanta. It doesn't go smaller than that, but we're a big part of that. So let me just share with you, with this pulse survey, we saw that since March 13th, when we knew we were in for the long haul, since March 13th, 49% of the households surveyed in Metro Atlanta, virtually half, have experienced some form of job loss. To me, what's just as important is that when they were asked with the period ending November 3rd, were they expecting for their household to have any job loss in the next 4 weeks? Over a quarter of them said yes. Now, this next slide has a lot of numbers, and it's one that will make your eyes glaze over, but let me take you down to the meat of this. And that is that the red bar is in the last 7 days. The blue bar is what it was prior to the pandemic. And this is talking about food security and food insecurity. If you look at the sometimes not enough to eat and often enough to eat, we already had an issue with this, because we had nearly 350,000 households who either sometimes or often did not have enough to eat. But look how those numbers have grown. Now it's over 525,000 households that either often don't have enough to eat or sometimes don't. But I think nothing tells the story better than this. This was actually just a few weeks ago. And in those few weeks ago, this photo was taken at Reflections of Trinity, which is an organization I happen to help out at sometimes on Saturdays. In fact, that's me in my little orange Cobb Community Foundation shirt. So anyway, these are folks lined up to get food. And this was about 7:30 in the morning, and the food doesn't start getting distributed until 9. So this need is still there, and it's still real. So what have we done? Well, the first thing we did was create a Cobb Community Response Fund, and raised or received pledges of up to $370,000. We've given away the bulk of that. We've got about $56,000 left. And our focus has been on food. Second focus has been on what's classified as education, but this could go from helping to fund social workers to continue to work during the summer, so they're working with families, to technology. It's to having KSU students tutor English second language students. So there are all kinds of things that are around the subject of education. So we're very proud of this, and there's some great stories. Another program we're very proud of, and frankly, I could spend all day on, is Cobb Community Food Fleet. I want you to look at these names, and I'm just going to fly through a bunch of pictures as I tell you that if you will remember earlier this year, we also have pictures of crops being tilled under, to milk being poured down the drain, and the USDA saw all these cars lined up to receive food and realized they needed to do something. So they created a program where they would award grants to food distributors who would purchase food from the farmers, package it, and deliver it to communities in need. Well, there was a high demand for which communities were going to be selected. And so we worked very hard at Cobb Community Foundation to get us out in front. We work with the Braves, who allowed us to use their dock to put a freezer truck. In fact, this team of folks has been instrumental. This guy on the left, Howard Kepke, you're going to hear more about him over the next couple of weeks, but he has been on the ground. He's with Noonday, and he has been working with virtually every single organization that distributes food throughout the county to get it out. These other folks, including Travis Ellis. Travis is with Mobilized Fuels, and he and S.A. White come in and fuel this truck. But the Braves also let us use their refrigerator area. Then when the season started, we had to move to Sweetwater Mission, and Gordon Foods loaned us 2 refrigerated trucks. And we had volunteers, including these guys from Rugby ATL, who were delivering food. And then we moved to the Galleria, who helped us when we realized we may not be able to have access to a refrigerator, but we need access to a dock. That just make things so much easier. Excuse me. And you can see the results of this. This is the food being distributed. All those boxes you see stacked up, those are these boxes of food. Just going out all over, including out on the sidewalk outside of Truist Park, where we've got some smaller organizations just picking up directly from the sidewalk. These are all the sites at which that food was distributed. That's almost 50 different locations. And nonprofits are taking the food not just to their own location, but to others. They've created their own mobile food banks with their trucks, and the funding that we've provided has been very helpful with that. It's been important for us to distribute out these community connection cards. We put them in food boxes. We printed 75,000 so folks will know where they can go for help. And that's been amazing. So looking back, we hired a new team member, and we transitioned the 2 others to new jobs. We created and raised funds for COVID relief and distributed over $300,000. We created the food fleet and distributed 78,000 boxes of food that was roughly 1.4 million meals, and frankly valued at about $3.4 million. I didn't talk about this, but we provided some information to the Board of Commissioners to help them in determining what was needed for food. Oh, and then we managed our charitable funds, opened some new ones. We also created the first employee assistance fund in the state of Georgia and hired an investment manager.